Welcome to Twitter for Schools, Episode 4, Composing Your Own Tweet. My name is Ryan O'Donnell. You can find me on Twitter at CreativeEdTech. I'm a technology TOSA in Rockland Unified, and in this particular episode, we're focusing away from the how to reply to somebody else who has tweeted to now starting the conversation yourself, starting your share, your conversation, your own tweet. And since what we talked about what tweets are and how they differ from email and other kind of conversations, this episode, we're really going to focus about some of the things that you may want to be aware of as you're starting to go down this road. So if I hop over here to Twitter and I take a look at my my homepage on Twitter, and like we said before, this brings up my feed of all the people in which that I follow. We're going to focus here in the upper right-hand corner where it says to tweet. When I click on that, up comes a window in which that I'm going to begin this conversation. Now, I want you to be careful, like what we talked about in the past, is realizing is that what you put here is quite public. And between the last episode that I put out and this particular one, I watched a movie and I wanted to share with you a quick clip from this movie. And this movie is called Chef with Jon Favreau. And one of the pivotal scenes, sort of the beginning of the conflict of this fun film, is about how the main character mistakes the idea about what tweeting is and his thought of what was private is actually public. So let me show you what that looks like.
Yeah.
You got 1,653 followers since last night.
Oh, is that good?
It's amazing.
Oh, good. What does it mean?
It means that 1,653 people are reading your Twitter feed.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was like texting.
Did you post anything since last night?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I just sent a private message to somebody.
To who?
To that a-hole food critic.
You could only send private messages to people who are following you. I think you might have posted that publicly.
No, he wrote something nasty about me, and then I hit reply and let me send a message to him.
Dad, replies are public. Everybody can read them. And it looks like he retweeted it to all his 123,845 followers. And he wrote back.
So as you saw, you can see that his misunderstanding about what this communication was like is going to lead to the conflict. And this ultimately will drive the rest of the movie, which I highly recommend as a fun film to watch. But and I think the reason being is you can see sort of the difference between the father and the son who understands this, not necessarily language, but sort of this mode of conversation, which is a bit unfamiliar to many adults. And so that's kind of what the whole point and premise of these series of videos are all really about. So keeping that in mind, as we look here about how to compose a tweet, I want to be able to show you some of the things in which that you can do. So first off, we can see it says compose a new tweet, and here's my account, my logo, and I can now start to type in here. And so I'm going to talk about an upcoming game that this particular school, Rockland, is having against its inter-district crosstown rival, which is Whitney High School. And I'm going to start typing here. And as we start typing, you can, we mentioned this last time, notice about how much space that I have left. And so this goes sort of from empty to full, and you have about 280 characters in which to fill out. And I'm going to say something along the lines of, attention, everyone in Rockland. Big game tonight. Come out to watch RHS versus WHS in the big playoff game at Whitney High School, and the game's at 7 o'clock. Now, as I was typing, you probably noticed a couple things popped up. So I'm going to go down to the next line, and I'm going to show you some of those things that were happening. So, like, watch this as I typed in Whitney High. Look what happened. It automatically, Twitter is trying to be able to guess some things. Like, hey, we know some things that because you follow or are connected with. So Whitney Athletics, Whitney Football, Whitney High School. And it's asking if you click on any of these, watch what happens. It turns the text that you have into that @ symbol. And I'm not going to do that now because I want to be able to show you how to be able to do that by hand. But that's kind of what what Twitter is trying to be able to do in terms of help you out with some things to tag. And the reason being is because showing the importance of what it is to be able to use these tags and also the hashtags to be able to get more. Ultimately, the reason you're putting this out, what's called traction. You want to be able to get this to the people who you're hoping to be able to reach out to. So let's back up a little bit and say, let's say, here's my tweet. What are some things I can add to this? And I'm going to go from right to left over here. First off is a location, and this just simply is what it is. When I click on it, it's going to use my location and where I'm at. And if I want to be able to turn that off, I can hit remove location. Second thing is about how to be able to add a poll. You don't see many of these, but if you wanted to do sort of a quick survey, so I could say like, let me say if I went up here, I could have say, who do you think will win? And I could be able to pick my choices here, RHS, WHS, and then you can be able to say, how long do I want this thing to be able to last for? And users can kind of vote on this thing. So a very, very informal poll if you're interested. Not a lot of people are necessarily doing that. The next two are images that you can add. One, you can add photos, even short video clips, and the other one are GIFs, animated, those looping little animated images. Now, what's interesting about the GIFs is they're very prevalent. If you don't see a lot of polls on tweets, you are seeing a lot of these GIFs, and it ranges from people who are passionate about them, much like emojis. Some people really love them, and some people don't. But if you want to be able to add a GIF, let me show you what you do. When you click on it, it brings up their own search engine of these animated GIFs, and like I said, they are just these looping short little, just a few seconds. And you can see by just scrolling down, it gives you the different themes. Like let's say if I just wanted to be able to do a please, if I click on the word please, it brings up lots of these funny, very popular animated GIFs or memes, which you can simply just drop in there. And if I click on any of them, like I click on the dog who's sort of begging please, and it will drop it in there. If I don't want it, I can click the X. And if you just basically have your own idea too, let's say if I really wanted to be able to do my own, you could just do a search and see what comes up for angry. So if I type in angry, we can have a tweet. We can have that little image pop up there. And this will just continue to loop. Speaking of things that people have preference towards, some people love and don't love animated GIFs. The same thing applies with emojis in the upper right-hand corner. So if I say, hey, attention everyone in Rockland, big game tonight, come out. Well, I want to do big game tonight. Which game is it? What's the sport? I could write basketball, but watch, I could just do add emoji, and I can type in or search for different kind of emojis, or I can, like I've here, if I'm going to go to sport theme one and click on the basketball, and then automatically will drop that in. And this will only count for one character inside your tweet, so not very much. I'm not going to add this into ours here. Work on my punctuation. Although that Twitter is brief, we do recommend if you're tweeting from a school or a district account that you try to be able to not use as many truncated and shortened words as you can. The idea about using emojis or animated GIFs, it's a personal preference, but I will say this, is that it does lend itself more towards informal conversations and friendly sort of a joking kind of back and forth kind of communication. So I would tend to say to not do a heavy use of these if you're doing this from a more of official account. And then the last piece is over here is about how to be able to add photos or videos. And this does a couple different things. One, a lot of statistics and research has been done, but the idea that if you add an image into your tweet, the research shows that you're going to have more eyeballs stop at that. And so that's why you're seeing a large prevalence of people who are adding media into these messages, because they want it to be able to pop up. It takes up more space. It's more visual. We as humans are visual people, and it's easier to see a quick a view of something as opposed to a reading. So if I click on add a photo, it's going to bring up a window, and it's going to look for photos or images that I had previously added and downloaded. And so I'm going to go to my folder of images here, and I'm going to search for one in which that I have already done. And I'm going to go over here and look for this image called Game, which I made earlier in Google Drawing. And now I've dropped in this one. And in many ways, it's kind of just going to be the same thing. And you can do it different ways. It could just be a photograph of an event. For this particular one, since I'm asking for something that's going to be happening, I'm promoting an upcoming event, I wanted to basically repeat much of the same things as I did before, but I wanted to make it an image for the reasons like I said before, so it can pop out and show up in people's feed. So that's one reason. And the other reason I want to do that is this that shows up right here. It says, who's in this photo? Now what's interesting is I can now attach a name to this particular photo, I can tag them. So if I wanted to be able to add somebody on, there's two basic ways. So like, watch this. I want, let's say, our school district to know that we're having this. So if I typed in Rockland, and it's guessing for me. So here's our official school district account. I want them to know, the person who runs our social media at the district level, I want them to see that we have a big game. So I wrote it within the tweet. It'll show up there. It does, if I start adding lots of them, this circle that shows how much space I have is going to get filled up, and it's not going to read real well because it's just people after people after people. So the other way to do that is I'm going to get rid of that there, and on the bottom where it says who's in this photo, if I click on that, now I can add up to 10 people attached to this to an image. I start typing in, like I type in the letter R, it brings up groups and organizations that I follow. So here's Rockland Unified, and now that's one out, and I can add 9 more. So now I want to start thinking is, in order to give me the most traction, who do I want to be able to tag on this? How many people do I really want this to be able to show up as a notification that they will see that they have been added to a tweet, to be able to have it come across their radar? So I can do, I mentioned before, if I typed in Whitney, I can bring up here is Whitney Athletic Department. I can bring up the Whitney High School itself. I can bring up individuals, I can bring up the principals, I can bring up the coaches, I can bring up superintendents, I can start tagging all of these. Or even this, if I'm be able to say, hey, I want all of Rockland to come to this thing, I'm going to actually search for the city of Rockland and actually get something out of our the school district and try to be able to get the city itself aware of it. So basically bringing awareness and notifications to people about an upcoming thing in the future or something that happened in the past. And when I click outside of there, it shows those people who are tagged. What's nice is it keeps the tweet a little bit cleaner, so it just shows up as is, and these notifications are still going to come about to be sent to them. The last thing what we'll do is I'm going to hit tweet and send that out. I've already done this before, so I'm not necessarily going to do that right now, but I want to show you that this is the tweet that I did send out earlier and what it ultimately looks like. So here's our Twitter page, our Twitter feed, and you can see I have tweeted this thing out and says, hey, we want the whole city to come out tonight. I forgot to mention earlier about, besides adding tagging people, that you all should be putting hashtags on here. So I decided to add the 2 hashtags. I put our school hashtag, and I also added the district hashtag. And you could be able to add those that are outside. Let's say if it was themed around a certain thing. If you have a bunch of teachers who are going to a UDL training, you could be typing in whatever that particular group uses for UDL. So you could do hashtag UDL chat, or if you got a bunch of teachers who are at an NGSS science retreat, so you could, or workshop, you could be able to say, hey, look at our teachers. They're at the NGSS science, learning to become better teachers, and you can do your hashtag, and you can also do the NGSS chat hashtag. So, and if you're interested, I'll provide a link where you can see all different sort of Twitter hashtags that I've sort of curated of different subject area and themes. And so lastly, I think I want you to be able to, so don't feel intimidated like the character in the movie that we saw that, oh no, I'm nervous about hitting that tweet because I'm going to start some sort of conflict, some sort of a message that goes that wasn't unintended. Definitely, like anything, before you send an email out, you definitely want to, think once, think twice before you hit that final thing, because everything that is, once it does get sent out, it is not recoverable. You can delete tweets once you send something out. Like if I wanted to, I could go into like if I go into a particular tweet, once it's been done, I can see some things. I can see how many people retweeted it, how many people liked it and such. And if need be, I can hit the drop down and I can delete the tweet. And oftentimes people will do this. If you misspelled something or something was done incorrectly, you can take it down. But it did get out there originally, and depending on how long it was and how much traction that you have, people may have seen it. So you can't have people unsee things, but you do have the ability to take it down afterwards. Other things that you can do, by the way, is you can do this pin to profile page, and that's nice. So every tweet that you put out will just go down in a stream, and they're just done chronologically. But if you ever have one that you want to be able to leave up there, that you want to be able to sit and to be on your, when people go to your account, will always be the first one. That is what your pin to your profile page will be. By putting it there, we'll now keep it there, and you only can pin one directly. So I hope you guys found some ways to be able to be conscious and think about how you can be extremely effective when you're sending out your tweets. And best of luck to you as you get out into that world of Twitter.